A new year always brings about such excitement and hopes for all the amazing things we're going to read this year. Here are some of my anticipated 2025 book releases and my bucket list reading items that I hope you can add to your list as well. Hi everyone, it's Jenny. It's been a long time since we've done a kind of like a sit down book conversation like this. I know we had a whole Vlogmas section in December, so I'm really excited to be back just to talk about books. Happy New Year. I hope you're all having a fantastic January. I started 2025 here with COVID. So, yay. It's my first time getting COVID. It feels so 2020 of me, and it's 2025. So your girl is struggling here because it's her first time. My makeup concept today is put on blush and more blush and more blush to look like somebody who is living. You can probably hear it in my voice, and my fever just went down a little bit yesterday. So we're pulling through, we're getting there, but it is a journey. So I feel you, everyone who's had COVID before me. Truly. These are a lot of side notes, but if you see twinkles in my glasses here, I am actually resorting to using a Christmas tree for lighting because I held off filming until the nighttime, so that's on me as well. So here we are. Happy New Year. Welcome to my first COVID sick video of the year, and I'm really excited to just talk about the upcoming releases and also some of my book challenges, book goals for this year and reading goals in general. Okay, so the way we're going to format this, I want to talk about the book releases first because I'm just really excited for those. So I kind of want to get them out of the way. And then at the end of at the second section or whatever we want to call it, I will go through some of my bucket list reading items for this year of little things I want to do to kind of both treat myself and challenge myself in terms of my reading journey in 2025. So I hope you can either literally copy paste some of those into your own or gain inspiration for different things you want to sort of challenge yourself with this year in your reading journey. All right, with all that rambling done, let's go into the 2025 book releases that I'm very excited for. One thing to note is that I have very mainstream taste in authors, and I don't say that as a diss to anybody because I think authors are mainstream for a reason. So I think most of these releases people are generally familiar with in the book community online. So a lot of these may be repeat for you, but if there's one that you haven't heard of and I get you excited about that, that's the goal there. I'll be trying a lot of other releases as I can get my hands on them in the Libby app where I get them from my library. And we'll talk about it at that point. But here are 5 books that I am very excited to read this year. The first book that is coming out in 2025 that I am so pumped for is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I honestly thought back in high school, high school, when Mockingjay came out, it was this whole emotional experience. There was just such fanfare around this Hunger Games series and also later on like the movie franchise. And I thought that was it. So honestly, when the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes came out, I was the loser that was like, oh, I don't know if we should be reviving this series after so long. I'm so stupid for that. Suzanne Collins got me. I was, my Hunger Games obsession is back, so back. And coming out with a book about Haymitch's story is not fair. For a quick recap for those who don't remember, and I do apologize if I'm using incorrect language here to anyone who's like heavy in the fandom, but Haymitch was essentially the coach of Katniss and Peeta when they went into the Hunger Games, so in the original kind of like 3-book series. As part of that, he was kind of this like very damaged man who unfortunately had to, suffer through a lot of alcohol and substance abuse and all of that due to his time as the Hunger Games champion. So that's where this book takes place. It starts the morning of his Hunger Games, and he was in, actually, I think it was called A Quarter Quell, but in this case it was the 50th anniversary. So if I remember correctly, nobody come for me if I'm wrong, they actually had double the amount of Hunger Games participants that year. So there was extra amounts of death and horror. I'm so sad for this book. I'm ready to get my heart absolutely broken. I love that Suzanne Collins continues to traumatize me with stories in this Hunger Games universe. And I think it is also incredibly timely to continue on her stories, given some of the socio and political, environment that we live in today. It's a message that needs to be told over and over because people just need to kind of wake up a bit, So Sunrise on the Reaping, get ready for that. She Can Take My Money. That is a book I will buy without reading because I know I'm going to love it. All right, the second book. This author used to be a read first and then buy, but in the recent 2 releases that she's done, she is now another Take My Money author. All that to say, I'm so excited for Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Happy Place and Funny Story were both such hits for me. Like, they are the peak of the romance genre for me. And if she continues this trajectory, I cannot imagine not loving Great Big Beautiful Life. So that's all that needs to be said. I won't go too far into the premise of this book because, it's everywhere online, but A Great Big Beautiful Life is focusing on 2 writers who are competing to be able to write the story of this, I believe they use the words larger than life woman. So we got like a rival situation going on here. That's all I'm really going to get into. But Emily Henry is just an author you can kind of rely on to weave such a romantic plot. And I love that she's explored recently characters that are so incredibly unique. It's all these romantic tropes, and it's not just about like appealing to an audience and making them want this like tropey male lead, like a lot of kind of more lighthearted romance books are like, where there's nothing wrong with that either. We all read those. But I love how she has like complex characters who have real struggles, and they explore like friendship dynamics, family dynamics, all of that. I expect nothing less from this book. So if you haven't tried Emily Henry before, what are you doing? 2025, get on that. Great Big Beautiful Life. Next book I am absolutely terrified for, The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong. I've honestly, this is horrible, but I've never read Ocean Vuong's poetry because I'm not a poetry person. However, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous remains to date one of the most beautiful books I have ever read, and that was his kind of novel debut written in prose. So when he announced on his Instagram that he was coming out with a book, and I think he just took a picture of like either his computer screen or like a stack with his manuscript, and it just said The Emperor of Gladness, the title already stabbed me in the soul. And he's another author where I would just like immediately buy his book. And I say I would because we can get into this in later videos, but I can't, this is so stupid, but I can't read hardcover books comfortably. So I like to buy paperbacks, and then that's where I suffer because I have to wait like a year to get paperbacks sometimes. Anyway, all that to say, Emperor of Gladness, I was so excited for it. And then once more details started coming out, I started simultaneously also dreading it. And I'll get into that. So the premise of Emperor of Gladness did come out, and it is about a 19-year-old boy called Hai. It starts off in trigger warning of just like, ideation and attempts and everything. So he finds himself standing on a bridge ready to jump until he hears someone call out for him, and that person ends up being an elderly widow. So essentially, from what I've grasped, this book follows this relationship that forms between this boy and the elderly widow who is succumbing to the effects and the impacts of dementia. Again, the rest of the premise is available online, but for that very reason, I feel like this is going to be a very, very tough read. And the reason I'm also so scared is because Ocean Vuong has this power with the English language that I honestly haven't seen from other places anywhere. So I just know that he's going to harness his power with language and with writing so well for this story and utterly shred me to pieces. I tend to stay away from storylines that have to do with dementia and the likes because I just don't enjoy topics like that, unfortunately. Like I avoid uncomfortable topics, handcuff me, I don't care. But because it's Ocean Vuong, he kind of holds me hostage. So I do have to read it. And I'll just try to save it for like Sad Girl Fall or something and just truly suffer and just destroy myself while I read it. I can't wait. Now we're going to do a 180 and talk about Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. Okay, so Ali Hazelwood is an author who I had to form opinions about slowly. When I first read her book, Love Hypothesis, a few years ago at this point, I was pretty like neutral about her because the book was like funny and like cute, but that was it for me. But then I read, I think, Love Theoretically in 2024, and now I get it. Like, Ali Hazelwood is a girly who's just there for you when you need a good rom-com, and also need a good rom-com about like women in STEM or like anything. So it's like very unserious, but also like her writing is very relatable, and she puts in some real topics about like, you know, women struggling in STEM and all of that. So I get it now. I get the hype behind Ali Hazelwood, and I truly appreciate like the content she puts out and the material she publishes, because it's something that we all need in times like I am right now. When I have COVID and I'm curled up on a couch, I don't want to read The Emperor of Gladness. I want to read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. And telling you about the premise also will explain a lot on why I'm excited for this one. So as I alluded to, most of her well-known books previously have been about like this women in STEM world. This one is about, like, I think it's about like Olympics and preparation for that between this girl who is a competitive diver and a guy who is a competitive swimmer. You must understand this went from books written for Connie, who is a woman in STEM, to books written for me, who is a past kind of like childhood competitive swimmer. So now that there's like a swimming rom-com coming out, I am doomed. I'm going to have the best time reading this. It's going to be so funny. It's going to be amazing. Written in my language. I am so ready. All right, the last book, it's a bit of an honorable mention because I'm not fully caught up with all her books yet, but I am very much anticipating Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid is an author that I always really enjoy her books, and then this sounds horrible. I'm so sorry to all her like true fans out there. Sometimes I just like forget that she has other books, if that makes sense. Like, I read Evelyn Hugo, absolutely loved it, like literally saved my reading career from university and brought me back into reading after university, because I think after all the textbooks and everything, I was just like, I'm never picking up a book ever again. And then I read Evelyn Hugo and it was amazing. And then last year, 2024, I read Malibu Rising after just like forgetting about her for 2 years, and it was stunning. Like, it was a great story. So Atmosphere sounds especially interesting because I just love her ability to have these larger than life characters. So the new premise that she's writing about sounds so interesting to me because it's about space, like astronauts, which is totally new to what she wrote about before. And I'm so excited to be a fan and be emotionally invested in an astronaut. I believe this story is actually quite high stakes because it sounds like they get stuck in space, which is a bit reflective of current or recent news stories. But I think that it's meant to be like, you know, romance as well. And it just sounds like right up my alley because it feels a bit larger than life. Like, literally it's out of this world. So I'm really excited to see how she kind of paints a picture of these characters and their relationships and all the intricacies behind it. I have yet to read Carrie Soto is Back, which I did buy recently. So I need to get on that because I've heard a lot of my friends talk about how Carrie Soto is Back and Taylor Jenkins Reid single-handedly got them interested in just like the world of competitive tennis. So she has that power and she'll make me a fan of astronauts. Yet that is now a possibility. So Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. All right, so those are 5 books that I'm so excited to read in this new year. My voice is a little croaky. We're starting to get up there in the time, so please excuse me for that. Now the thing I'll move on to is my 2025 reading bucket list and goals. If you saw my video in around early December last year, where I kind of summarized the benefits of not having a solid reading target in terms of number of books, you'll know that I yearly set my reading target to just one book. It has brought a lot of benefits to my reading. If you are interested, this is a quick plug for that video. So outside of just reading one book, I ended up setting a lot more kind of like qualitative, like fluffy goals for myself in terms of reading. To explore different, genres, different places to get recommendations, all of that. So this year I do have a list of like 5 different things I want to try myself in my reading journey. So hopefully you can take some inspiration from these. The first one on my list will be a video for sure. I would like to read Jane Austen's entire published works. Last year, I came across a secondhand folio collection of Jane Austen's books. So all of her completed books, and then one also including like one final consolidated version of her short works and her uncompleted books like Sanditon, I believe. So it's sitting on my shelf. I've only read Pride and Prejudice and Northanger Abbey, and I've watched Emma and I think Mansfield Park as well. So there's in Sanditon, the TV show, so I'm a Jane Austen fan. So I just need to, get through her books, and I want to do kind of like a full reading and then a definitive ranking of her male protagonists, her female protagonists. We're just going to dissect the whole thing together. So I'm so excited for that. I hope you are as well. I need to fully just embrace my identity as a Jane Austen girl. So that's my goal for this year. Number 2, this is a little niche in the BookTube, book talk community. So if you get it, we see each other. But I want to catch up on One Piece, which is, I'm just going to describe it for what it is. It is a Japanese pirate manga with thousands of chapters. I'm not joking. Thousands. Many, many, many years ago, I somehow managed to sit down and read around 200 of them. And then I think it got slow at a certain point and I didn't pick it back up. But the story is just so wonderful. I think most people probably know One Piece now because it had that live action Netflix kind of adaptation. I would really, really love to catch up with that series before it inevitably comes to a finale. Like, I would love to be there with all the rest of like the fan community to experience like the release and the launch of the last chapter of One Piece. So that's my goal for this year. It's going to be absolutely insane. Maybe I'll make a video on that too. Now we're getting into my only quantitative goal, which is that I would like to read at least 6 books off of my physical TBR shelf. I think we can get more done just realistically based on the past, but I also just want to give myself some leniency and just make it a relaxing activity where I really pick things up when I want to read it. I have a lot of excellent books sitting on that shelf, like Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, Rebecca, Little Women, Babel. I always forget how you're supposed to pronounce it. Yellowface, like all of those books are sitting on my TBR shelf, so I don't think it's going to be hard at all for me to read a bunch of them. But 6 books off my physical TBR. That's goal number 3. Goal number 4, this one I'm very excited about. I would like to reread more books. I don't know if anyone else relates to this, but I've just been so bad at allowing myself to reread books in recent years. I think a lot of it has been related to social media influence, but it's that concept of constantly being pushed new book recommendations, new book releases, kind of like this video, I'm sorry. But there's just this idea of like my TBR on Storygraph has built up to like it has gone over 200 books at some point. I finally got it down to 170, and I just always had this pressure to go to your TBR and read what's next, read something new. Meanwhile, I've also like my bookshelf only has books that I want to reread, and that's the only time I buy a book. Or in recent years, that's been my new approach. And yet I haven't given myself the time to reread them. And I think that's something that I'm not super happy about. Like, I want to be able to just cozy up and read a book that I already kind of know and I know that I'll love. Like, for example, I really want to reread Happy Place by Emily Henry. And I think I just need to kind of allow myself the time to just reread books and not have to read something new all the time. So that's something that's very strongly on my list and I'm very, very excited for. I know some of you probably relate and some of you probably absolutely don't relate. So there we go. The last item on my bucket list is I do want to continue trying more audiobooks. I have struggled with them on and off in the past because I'm not a very auditory person. I have always struggled in school lectures, and the information goes in one ear and out the other. Like, I need to be writing things down or reading them with my eyes. So I really just need to start pushing myself to develop my auditory skills, and find good audiobooks. So if you have good audiobooks with good narrators, please feel free to recommend them to me in the comments, because I do struggle with finding good narrators sometimes. But I have been knitting a lot recently, so it's like perfect to go with that. Just knit and listen to audiobooks. And I think that's a wonderful little hobby to have. So I'm really excited to try more audiobooks and go on these kind of like auditory adventures, just like how stories were told in the past, right? So that is my last goal for 2025. Okay, so we've made it till the end of the video. If you haven't seen Connie's video yet about 2025 movie releases, I would actually really recommend you check them out. I am biased because Connie and I have a lot of very similar, I'm going to say almost identical taste in like movie directors and movies and everything, but she recommended some releases coming out this year from just directors that are also my ride or dies, and it's just so exciting, and I didn't know so many of them were coming out, so I got really hyped up after watching that video, so I recommend you go check it out as well. At this point, I'll shout out her behind in this backstage thing. She is editing my video for me this week because I am, look at the state of me. So she offered to help edit, and that is wonderful. So there you go. Here's your book releases, your little bucket list inspiration items, and more homework to go watch the movie releases. Again, I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. I hope your 2025 is wonderful, full of happiness, health, and time with loved ones. So thanks for joining, and I will see you all in our next video in another week. Goodbye.